Good evening and welcome to the Indiana University Cinema's virtual screening room. I'm Brittany Friesner, the cinema's interim director. Please note that tonight's event features live captioning, and to turn on captions, you'll want to move your mouse to the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, click on Live Transcript, then click Show Subtitle. If you have any issues accessing this feature, please feel free to ask a question using the Q&A box, which can also be found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. To begin tonight's program, IU Cinema wishes to acknowledge and honor the Indigenous communities native to this region and recognize that Indiana University is built upon Indigenous homelands and resources. We recognize the Miami, the Delaware, the Potawatomi, and the Shawnee people as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We are grateful to work on this land and encourage each of you to reflect on the land from which you are watching tonight. Thank you for joining us this evening for the virtual screening of the 1973 film Amarcord, directed by Federico Fellini. Tonight's program is part of the Spring 2021 President's Choice Film Series, with all films programmed by IU President Michael A. McRobbie, who will be joining us shortly for an introduction to the film. I'd like to once again thank the more than 30 Indiana University faculty and staff members who joined together in September 2017 to commemorate the 10th anniversary of President McRobbie's tenure as IU president by presenting gifts to endow the President's Choice Film Series. This series is now a part of IU Cinema's program each year in perpetuity, honoring President McRobbie's leadership, his affinity for cinema, and the critical role he played in catalyzing and making a reality the dreams of so many who throughout IU's history sought to establish a university cinema on the Bloomington campus. Thank you, President McRobbie, for making our collective place for film possible and for helping us bring it to life this past decade, presenting transformative cinematic experiences accessible for all across our campus and community. Now, please join me in welcoming President Michael A. McRobbie.
Thank you, Brittany. It is a great pleasure to join you for tonight's IU Cinema online screening of Federico Fellini's 1973 masterpiece, Amarcord. I want to begin by congratulating the staff of the IU Cinema, past and present, on the cinema's 10th anniversary, which it observed in January. In its first decade, the cinema has presented nearly 3,000 public events with more than 312,000 tickets issued and nearly 2,300 unique film titles screened. More than half of the cinema's programming has also been completely free of charge. The cinema has hosted visits from around 350 distinguished filmmakers and scholars, many of whom have appeared as part of the Jorgensen Guest Filmmakers series. Between the international filmmakers who have visited the cinema and the films from around the world that have been screened, 113 countries have been represented, which has helped audiences forge bonds through shared experiences that transcend cultures. While the cinema's physical space has not been open for events and film screenings during the COVID-19 pandemic, the cinema has continued to offer a wide variety of engaging film experiences through virtual screenings and conversations with filmmakers. And the cinema's physical space has been far from shuttered. It continues to be used as classroom space for a variety of courses. The cinema's outstanding founding director, John Vickers, who stepped down last fall, Associate Director Brittany Friesner, who now serves as interim director, and the entire staff have done a superb job of developing the cinema into one of the nation's very finest university cinemas. They have also brought highly innovative and very diverse programming to the cinema, including events like the Orphans Midwest Film Festival, which brought attention to neglected cinematic artifacts and was the first major event of its kind to be held in the Midwestern United States. And I extend my congratulations to all of the staff of the IU Cinema, past and present, on what has been an enormously successful first decade. The great Italian filmmaker Federico Fellini was born on January 20, 1920, the very day that Indiana University celebrated its centennial anniversary. He is one of the greatest and most influential filmmakers of all time and one of my very favorite film directors. Many of you joined us online in January for a screening of Fellini's masterpiece, 8½. That screening and tonight's film are part of a celebration of the 100th anniversary of Fellini's birth, which was intended to be held last year, but a number of these scheduled screenings had to be cancelled due to the pandemic. Next month, the cinema will host an online screening of Fellini's 1983 film And the Ship Sails On to conclude this semester's President's Choice series. Fellini gained his first successes as a screenwriter, and early in his career he was part of the Italian neorealist movement, but he went on to develop his own distinctive methods and style. That Fellini-esque style might best be described in the director's own words from a 1984 Rolling Stone interview in which he said, "Cinema uses the language of dreams. Years can pass in a second and you can hop from one place to another. It is a language made of image," he continued, "and in real cinema, every object and every light means something, as in a dream." The film you are about to see tonight, Amarcord, was Fellini's follow-up to Roma, his 1972 semi-autobiographical film that depicted his move to Rome and his life in the city as a young man. Fellini's notebooks for Roma are among a number of Fellini manuscripts held within the collection of IU's Lilly Library. In Amarcord, Fellini follows the everyday lives of the inhabitants of Rimini, the small town in northern Italy on the Adriatic coast where he was born and raised. The film's title means "I remember" in one of the dialects of Fellini's native province, but it is not a strictly autobiographical remembrance. The Rimini of Amarcord is, as film critic Lawrence Goldenberg writes, a highly visual and unmistakably artificial locus constructed almost entirely inside the studios of Cinecittà. Goldenberg continues writing that Fellini, ever the honest liar, is careful to distance himself from the past while embracing it, filtering memory through protective layers of imagination. The film is set in the 1930s, which were Fellini's formative years in Rimini, and also the height of the fascist period when the dictatorship of Benito Mussolini enjoyed its most widespread popular support. The late IU distinguished professor and Fellini expert Peter Bondinella wrote that Fellini's fascists are not sinister, perverted individuals, but pathetic clowns, manifestations of the arrested development typical of the entire village. Professor Bondinella continued writing, Fellini's use of nostalgia as a means of romanticizing the past serves to underline his belief that fascism was based upon false ideals, and also his recognition that regret or nostalgia is as inevitable a sentiment as is refusal. Amarcord received the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film in 1974, and Fellini received an Oscar nomination for Best Director and Best Original Screenplay. It features music by the great composer Nina Rota, who wrote the music for most of Fellini's films. Rota's score is such an integral part of the film that one scholar has described Amarcord as an Italian cinematic folk opera. With that, I invite you to enjoy Fellini's 1973 masterpiece, Amarcord.
Thank you again, President McRobbie. We're looking forward to tonight's film, as well as the third film in the series, And the Ship Sails On, coming up on May 18th. At the end of this introduction, you will see information about how to watch tonight's film. We are also including this information in the chat. Please note the film will not screen through this Zoom window. You will need to open a web browser to watch the film tonight using the web address and the password provided. In addition to President McRobbie, we'd like to thank everyone in the President's office for helping make tonight's event presentation possible, including Kelly Kish, Greg Buse, and Vicki Petermichael. I'd also like to thank the entire IU Cinema team, especially Elena, David, Seth, and Jessica, who have all worked behind the scenes for us tonight to make tonight's event possible. We encourage you to visit our website at cinema.indiana.edu for more information on all of our upcoming virtual events and curated streaming offerings. Next week, we look forward to our continuing collaboration with Citizens for a Just Peace in Palestine and Israel to bring you the film Mayor as part of the Consequences of Enduring Conflict, Exploring Israeli-Palestinian Relations film series. The virtual film screening will be followed by a Q&A. To all of you who tuned in tonight, thank you once again for being with us. As always, we ask that you please take care of yourselves and be kind and generous to others. We hope you appreciate the film. Good night.